I used to laugh at the old legends. In the academy halls, humanity was a ghost story, told to discipline cadets and entertain hatchlings, a primitive species that burned itself to ashes long before our people mastered faster-than-light travel. Violent, emotional, dramatic, extinct, or so we believed. That illusion died the moment the sirens screamed across our command deck. Crimson alarms washed over the bridge as the long-range subspace array pulsed with an unknown contact. I expected a pirate frigate or perhaps a smuggler's junker drifting too close to regulated space. But when the signal resolved, I saw the Admiral's tendrils freeze mid-air. His voice, normally iron, fell to a brittle whisper. Impossible. The holographic display sharpened, and there it was, a dark, angular vessel cutting through the void. No transponder, no identifier, no diplomatic handshake code. A ship that traveled in silence as though the vacuum itself carried its intent. Whispers spread among the crew. Is that Terran design? It can't be. Humans are gone. My instructor said they never existed at all. But I felt it, an instinctual dread coiling in my chest. The hull was unlike ours, blunt edges, metallic scars, a predator's geometry. It did not glide like our ships. It stalked. The Admiral barked commands. Raise blackout protocol. Fleet formation Theta 9. We obeyed, shadows swallowing our vessel as the defense network shifted into battle alignment. Yet even as our fleet moved, the intruder continued its steady, unhurried approach. Why no hail, no broadcast, no warning? The myths returned to me, lessons spoken in half-fearful tones. Humans did not open dialogues. They acted. They adapted. They survived at any cost. A species that made war as naturally as breathing. A species that, even cornered and broken, refused to die. The ship drifted closer on our screen, and a chill gripped me. What if the legends weren't exaggerations? What if wiping themselves out had only made them worse? What if extinction had not culled them, but hardened them? Our Admiral leaned forward, and I saw something in his eyes I had never seen before. Not anger, not determination, fear. Maintain blackout, he ordered quietly. Do not provoke them. Outside our viewport, the void felt suddenly smaller, crowded, hunted. My pulse thrummed. Why would a dead species reemerge after 2,000 years? Why here? Why now? And why in silence? Then the human vessel shifted, angling toward us with chilling purpose, as though it could see through our cloak, see into our minds, see into our history. The bridge fell silent again. The old warning echoed in me. The words every cadet dismissed as dramatics. If ever humanity returns, the galaxy will tremble again. The human ship slowed to a stop, pointed directly at us, like an executioner choosing its first target. And before anyone could speak, before anyone could breathe, the lights on its hull ignited one by one, as if it were waking up. Silence is supposed to be peaceful. But as we faced that ancient Terran vessel drifting before our fleet, silence felt like a blade pressed to the throat of the galaxy. Protocol demanded that we hail them, though every instinct in my body screamed against it. Still, orders were orders. The Admiral gave a single nod, and our communications officer initiated broadcast. Transmitting standard greeting, she whispered, as if afraid the intruder could hear her tone. Our message pulsed outward, polite, diplomatic, harmless. We come in peace. Identify yourself. It was the same greeting we had used for centuries, one that opened treaties, alliances, friendships. The humans answered with nothing, not static, not refusal, not even interference. They simply listened. Minutes bled into hours. Our officers cycled through dialect after dialect, from the refined language of the high councils to the harsh tones of the war clans, to every encrypted peace code shared across starfaring species. 90 languages, 17 diplomatic algorithms, 4 ancient tongues resurrected from archive. Nothing. It was as though humanity stared at us from across the void, amused. I remembered the old line from the myths. Humans do not negotiate first. They judge first. Fear slithered through the crew. Even the Admiral's hands trembled as he made the call no one wanted. Summon the Second Fleet. Defensive formation, full encirclement. Warp signatures flared around us as reinforcements arrived, forming a wall of steel and plasma around the human vessel. Thousands of lives, hundreds of warships, enough firepower to sterilize a star system. Yet in the face of human silence, we felt no safer. Then, movement. The Terran ship emitted a single burst of encrypted data. Our firewalls rose in response, but the attack slipped through them as if they were paper illusions. Alarms shrieked, security grids collapsed, war-grade AI ceded control. Code meant to withstand the strongest machine intelligences simply died. "What are they doing? What is that?" officers shouted. The lights on every console flickered. And then, across the bridge, across every ship in our fleet, across every screen and visor and hollow surface, a symbol appeared. 2 fangs, a rising star, a sword through a broken circle, an ancient Terran war sigil. No voice, no terms, no ultimatum. Just a message written without words. We remember who we are. Do you? My tendrils went cold. The humans had spoken through silence and symbols, not language, because they didn't need language to intimidate us. The Admiral swallowed hard. They can communicate. They simply choose not to. I finally understood. The silence was not a failure of systems. It was dominance. We stretched our influence through treaties, structure, and control. Humans exerted theirs through fear. Before anyone could recover, the human ship powered its engines. Weapons? Thrusters? Some new system we didn't recognize? We didn't know. We only knew one thing. They were done watching. And now, it was their turn to act. There was no warning, no flare, no countdown, no arrogant broadcast demanding surrender. One moment, the Terran vessel floated before our armada like a silent omen. The next, obliteration. A thin lance of pale light flashed outward, so fast that our sensors registered impact before detection. Our lead battleship, the Vir Saturn, split open mid-hull, its armor peeling back like wet foil. Thousands died in an instant. No energy trail, no exotic radiation, no charge-up signature, a weapon that broke the rules of physics as we understood them. For a heartbeat, our bridge froze in disbelief. Then the void erupted. "Return fire!" the Admiral roared. Our retaliation was absolute. Plasma storms swirled through vacuum, ion lances crackled like blue lightning, gravitic imploders warped space around the human ship. The combined might of 200 warships lit the darkness in a blinding storm of color and fury. It should have annihilated anything that dared oppose us. But the Terran vessel was no ordinary opponent. It danced. There is no other word for it. The ship slid through our attacks with impossible grace, not evading randomly, but moving as though it already knew where each volley would land. Our predictive targeting, renowned across 12 sectors, became useless. Our formations, drilled for centuries, became traps for ourselves. Our precision shattered against something faster, smarter, older. One cruiser exploded to our left. Another folded in on itself, engines imploding before shields could fail. A third simply vanished. No wreckage, no debris, just gone. Impossible. They're reading our fire before we launch it, someone screamed. On the command deck, panic became tangible. I stood rooted in horror, watching our armada turn into wreckage. I had studied war all my life. I had modeled 1,000 invasions, memorized every conflict in the archive. And yet nothing. No empire, no pirate king, no machine war moved like this. How could a species we labeled extinct fight as though it had never stopped fighting? The Admiral's voice cracked. "They've done this before," he whispered. "Over and over. Against enemies far worse than us. That was the moment our pride died. We built our security on treaties and predictability. Humanity had built theirs on struggle, on adaptation, on pain. While we softened in peace, they had sharpened themselves into a singular instrument of war. Another blast. Another ship gone," Claxons wailed. Smoke choked the bridge. Sparks rained from shattered conduits, and still the human vessel pressed forward, methodical, unhurried, merciless. Then silence. Just as suddenly as it began, the onslaught ended. The Terran ship stopped amid the carnage it had wrought, floating in stillness while the burning remains of our fleet drifted around it. No follow-up strike. No demand, no explanation, just quiet, watching, measuring. What are they doing now?" I asked, my voice barely functioning. The Admiral answered without looking at me. "They're judging us." He was right. The humans weren't here to annihilate us. Not yet. This was an assessment, a test. And in the span of minutes, we, the might of a united quadrant, had been exposed as slow, soft, and unworthy. We waited, shaking, as the Terran vessel slowly rotated to face our flagship directly. The meaning couldn't have been clearer. The battlefield wreckage still drifted outside our viewport, burning. Fragments of ships that once carried our pride. The scent of scorched circuitry lingered on the bridge. But before we could even mourn, a summons arrived from Central Command, Level Omega access granted. Report to Strategic Archive. I felt my heart stutter. Omega-level clearance was reserved for existential threats, extinction events, rogue AI uprisings, celestial anomalies capable of devouring suns. Never, not once in recorded history, had the code been issued for a species. Yet, here we were. 2 hours later, I stood in the core of our secure data vault, surrounded by obsidian pillars of locked memory. The High Archivist appeared, his voice brittle. "You were taught lies of comfort, but you must now see truth." One by one, the seals broke. Holograms ignited around me, war footage, classified testimony, forbidden history, and the myths of humanity unraveled into terrifying clarity. Humans were not genocidal beasts, as our instructors had implied, nor were they tragic primitives destroyed by their own savagery. They were something far more dangerous to empires like ours. They were uncontrollable. Their societies thrived in chaos, not order. Their bodies mutated and adapted to hostile environments in a single generation. Their minds rebelled against obedience. Their willpower allowed them to crawl, bleeding and broken, through battles that would have shattered entire species. I watched archival footage of their final galactic war. Humanity, outnumbered by 5 coalitions, fought on every front. Cities vaporized, continents cracked, oceans boiled away, and still they refused surrender. When defeat became inevitable, they chose the unthinkable. They scorched their own cradle. Earth died, and humanity lived. I saw the aftermath. Their fleets vanishing into uncharted dark, carrying survivors, soldiers, scientists, dreamers. Not fleeing, not begging, preparing, waiting, and we, cowards of comfort, buried the truth. Not to mock them, but to protect ourselves from a reality too destabilizing to speak aloud. Humans were never conquered. They simply stepped away from a galaxy too afraid to let them exist. My limbs trembled as I closed the final dossier. I had always believed strength came from structure, unity, predictability. But humans drew strength from the opposite. Pain, loss, struggle, fire. Every wound made them harder. Every defeat forged them sharper. Every tragedy carved them into something new. How do you control a species that only grows stronger when broken? How do you cage something that evolved to shatter cages? The archivist spoke softly, as if voicing a funeral prayer. They are back, and the galaxy will not survive them. Unchanged, a tremor shuddered through the station, the unmistakable distant thrum of ship engines dropping from warp. The humans had returned to finish their story, and our next chapter was about to begin. The humans finally spoke. No signals for negotiation. No preamble. No encryption puzzle to decode. Their message did not arrive through any one channel. It arrived through all of them, overriding our own systems as if our networks were children's toys. Our bridge lights flickered, holographic panels froze, and in unison, every screen in the fleet turned to a single silhouette, tall, unmistakably human, lit only from behind. Then the voice came, calm, steady, as if they were announcing weather. Not war. We are returning to what is ours. 7 words. That was all. No threat. No ultimatum. No justification. Yet somehow, it was more terrifying than a fleet of planet killers or 1,000 war banners. Because those words carried certainty. They did not want. They did not demand. They simply declared, as if the outcome was already written and we were only now being informed. For a moment, the bridge was so silent that I could hear my own pulse. Even the engines seemed to hush, as if the ship itself understood the gravity of what we had just heard. The Admiral broke first, barking orders to re-establish communication, demanding the humans clarify their intent. Our AI complied, transmitting dozens of hails across every frequency, but the human ship gave no answer. They had spoken once. In their minds, that was enough. The Council panicked. Not outwardly, not yet, but I could see it in the messages flooding our command feed. Emergency war councils, mass fleet mobilizations, planetary shield activations. Entire sectors were thrown into lockdown within minutes. I had never seen the Council move this fast. Not even during the Orion Plague. Not even when Krell harvesters breached our inner colonies. Fear is a powerful accelerant, but something inside me whispered a different kind of fear. Not of death or invasion or conquest, but of meaning. We are returning to what is ours. What did they mean by ours? This sector? The galaxy? Every world their ancestors once touched? Every species they once defeated and spared? Or did they mean something even larger, something not bound by borders or maps? The Admiral paced behind us, jaw tense, voice sharp as a blade. They're posturing. Send a counter-message. Query their claim. Demand a diplomatic channel. But I knew. And deep down, I think the Admiral knew, too. Humans didn't posture, they promised. The message spread like wildfire across the fleet. Some officers reacted with anger, swearing we would never bow to a dead empire reborn. Others whispered in dread, recalling legends of humanity's final war, the one every academy professor dismissed as exaggeration. But I remembered the archives. I remembered the truth we buried. Humanity didn't fight for land or order or hierarchy. They fought for ownership of themselves. If they believed this galaxy was theirs, then they would not stop. They would burn, rebuild, adapt, and claw their way forward until reality bent to match their belief. How do you resist a species like that? The Admiral finally turned to me. Tactician, what's your assessment of their objective? I swallowed, knowing the truth would damn morale, but also that lying would damn us all. They are not negotiating territory, I said quietly. They are reclaiming legacy. The Admiral froze, and in that silence I knew something with perfect, chilling clarity. Humanity did not return as conquerors. They returned as heirs, and heirs do not ask permission. They take back what was promised. With just one sentence, they changed the fate of every world in our charts. Not by firing a weapon, not by demonstrating force, but by speaking a truth with absolute conviction. And in that moment, I finally understood why the galaxy once feared them. They didn't need armies to control us, just words. Panic is the great unifier of the weak. The moment humanity's message spread beyond our borders, the entire galactic web convulsed. Old enemies set aside centuries of hatred. Rivals who once argued over dust rings and mining lanes suddenly spoke of cooperation, joint fleets, and mutual defense. Merchant guilds welded armor onto cargo hulls, converting lumbering freighters into makeshift carriers. Planetary governments enacted emergency conscription. Civilian academies became barracks. Every species, every colony, every satellite ring woke to the same realization. If humanity was truly back, we would have to stand together or fall alone. For the first time in my life, I saw a united galaxy, but it was unity born in fear, not purpose. Diplomats raced across hyperlanes. carrying warnings, treaties, and desperate pleas. I stood beside the Admiral in council chambers as we declared the humans a Class Omega threat, the highest possible classification. We urged immediate mobilization. Strike first, we argued. Crush their foothold before it becomes a fortress. Our delegates spoke with fire, with logic, with data pulled from the forbidden archives. Yet even as the chamber roared with debate, I felt the sand slipping through our fingers, because bureaucracy moves like mud and humans move like lightning. The councilors bickered over titles, over borders, over who would command the United Armadas and who would pay for the war machines. Some argued for a defensive charter, others demanded offensive control. A few still clung to denial, insisting humanity was a myth exaggerated by frightened historians. Perhaps it's only a rogue faction, one senator scoffed. We must confirm before we escalate. Confirm? We didn't need confirmation. We needed action. But politics devoured urgency, as politics always does. Days became weeks. Committee sessions multiplied. Sub-councils formed. Lawyers debated war powers. Economists debated supply lines. Philosophers debated moral precedent. Meanwhile, the humans did not debate. They appeared. First one ship, watching from the void. Then 5. Then entire formations, wolf-pack fleets materializing at trade routes, nebula borders, and former battlegrounds. They never fired. They never hailed us again. They simply existed where they should not exist. Silent, patient, and unchallengeable, like hunters waiting for their prey to exhaust itself. Their presence alone destabilized everything. Trade collapsed. Frontier colonies rioted. Pirate factions vanished overnight, unwilling to even operate in a galaxy where humans were active again. Entire sectors shut down, convinced the humans would strike at any moment. No one slept. Everyone watched the skies. The Admiral paced our command deck like a caged predator, his voice raw from arguing with deaf politicians. They are buying time, he growled. And we are giving it to them. He was right. Every hour we wasted gave humanity exactly what they needed, psychological victory. Their fleets did not conquer worlds. They conquered imagination. Their silence was louder than orbital bombardment. At last, after too many delays, the Council voted to mobilize the Grand Allied Armada. 1,000 ships pledged, then 10,000, then entire defense grids and dreadnought classes. It was the largest military force ever assembled in recorded history. But it was already too late, because unity without speed is just theater, and our great alliance, for all its banners and fanfare, moved with the weight of its own self-importance. I watched the star map as our fleet slowly converged from distant systems, crawling toward a war that was no longer theoretical, all while the humans continued to spread, not as an army, but as a shadow. No declarations, no negotiations, no countdowns, just inevitability. And as the final pieces of our grand coalition fell into place, I realized the truth we all feared to speak aloud. The galaxy had united, but humanity had already won the first battle, the battle for time. We found the Corvette 3 cycles after it vanished, silent, unpowered, and adrift along the outer ring like a gutted carcass. Its hull bore no blast marks, no breaches, no signs of struggle, just a single open airlock, as if inviting us in. I led the boarding unit myself, pulse unsteady beneath the weight of every legend I had ever dismissed. The interior lights were dead, the corridors frost cold, drifting with frozen condensation. Our footsteps echoed in metallic hollows as we advanced, weapons raised, expecting bodies. Instead, we found survivors. Every crew member was alive, yet broken. Eyes wide, limbs trembling, voices shattered into stutters and whispers. Not one could answer our questions. They stared at us, not with relief, but with warning. Something had undone them from the inside. We pushed deeper, past collapsed officers and silent alarms, until we reached the bridge. The door was already open. The lights flickered, sparking in pale bursts, and then I saw him, my first human. He stood unrestrained in the center of the bridge. Tall, broad-shouldered, wrapped in scarred black armor unlike any alloy in our registries. his skin marked with old wounds, his stance impossibly calm, as if he were the owner of the ship rather than the invader upon it. But it was his eyes that shattered me. Not rage, not madness, not bloodlust, purpose, a blazing, focused, unbreakable sense of will so intense that I felt primitive beneath it. For the first time, I understood why an entire galaxy once trembled at their name. Humans were not feared for their brutality. They were feared for their conviction. My soldiers surrounded him, rifles aimed. He didn't flinch, didn't raise a weapon, didn't resist. He simply watched us, as if studying a disappointing equation. Then he did something I will never forget. He smiled. Not the smile of a conqueror. Not a threat. Worse. A knowing smile. One that said everything is already in motion and you are too late to stop it. We moved to restrain him. He offered no struggle. No words, no protest. He allowed us to bind his wrists, escort him through the ruined halls, and lead him toward our shuttle. Every step he took felt deliberate, like a predator walking into its own cage. On the flight back, I sat across from him in silence. His eyes never left me, and though he said nothing, I felt spoken to. My mind raced with every forbidden archive entry, every ancient quote. Humans do not fear fate. They make it. When we docked with the flagship, Admiral Syraxis met us at the hangar. His tendrils stiffened the moment he saw the prisoner. Even he, forged by 1,000 battles, seemed shaken. He dismissed the troops and approached the human alone. "You allowed yourself to be captured," the Admiral said quietly. "Why?" For the first time, the human spoke. His voice was low, rough, full of history. "So you would see us," he said, "before the others arrive." Those words felt colder than the void. There were more. Not myth. Not rumor. Not theories. More. The guards tensed. I felt my throat tighten. "What do you want?" I forced myself to ask. The human turned his gaze to me. Not cruel, not mocking, but terrifying in its certainty. "What is ours?" he said. The same sentence. The same message. Spoken now not as a threat, but as a vow. Before we could question him again, every alarm on the flagship erupted at once. Communications lit up. Sensors screamed. Officers shouted over one another. Human ships, multiple fleets, had just warped into the sector. The prisoner closed his eyes, almost peacefully, as if listening to distant music. And then he whispered, barely audible, "They're here. We sealed the human in our highest security chamber. A null-field interrogation cell designed to crush the minds of warlords and terrorists. No telepaths, no machinery, no signal, no sound. A void built to break any will. It did not break his." The interrogators began with questions, simple at first. His name, his fleet, his purpose, the date of humanity's return. He offered nothing. Not defiance, not mockery, just silence. Silence that felt heavier than threats, so they escalated. Pain cycles, neural shocks, sensory inversion, hours, then days, then a full rotation. He never screamed, he never begged, he never resented, he endured. When the agony peaked, he did not curse us. He spoke, not answers, never answers. Instead, he whispered fragments like prayer. We were forged in struggle. Our destiny is not finished. The story of our species was never yours to end. The interrogators grew uneasy. Some refused to enter the chamber. Others slept poorly, waking in cold sweats. They said his eyes followed them even in dreams. Our morale officers called it secondary trauma contamination. I called it something simpler, fear. Humans did not conquer flesh. They conquered the soul. Each time we tried a harsher tactic, something strange happened. The human seemed to grow calmer, steadier, as though suffering only sharpened his resolve. Meanwhile, our officers grew weaker. Their voices shook. Their confidence cracked. The predator and prey were reversing places, one heartbeat at a time. On the 7th day, I entered the chamber myself. He sat chained to the floor, head bowed, body bruised and burned. Yet when he looked up, his eyes burned brighter than any star. Not hatred, not vengeance, conviction. Why return? I asked quietly. Why now? If you can't be killed, if you can't be broken, what do you want from the galaxy? He exhaled slowly, and for the first time, I saw something that chilled me more than his strength. I saw grief. We gave everything to build a future, he said. And when we were gone, you built a cage around the galaxy and called it peace. You buried our story. You feared our fire. But fire is not evil. Fire is life. Fire is choice. Fire is will. He leaned forward, chains rattling. You live in order because you fear chaos. We mastered chaos because we refuse to fear anything. And now we return for what is ours. Not land, not thrones, not slaves. Then what? I whispered. Our legacy. Before I could respond, alarms blared throughout the facility. The lights flickered. Communications cut out. Officers shouted over the comms. Panic, confusion, chaos. The human smiled. Not triumphant, but inevitable. It begins, he said. What begins? I demanded. He lifted his head, eyes unblinking. The part where you finally understand what we are. The cell doors sealed automatically as the facility went into blackout lockdown. And in that silent red emergency glow, I realized a horrifying truth. We were not breaking him. He was waiting. We expected fire. We expected threats, ultimatums, declarations of war. Instead, humanity answered with silence. Their fleets, now dozens of colossal formations, slipped into every major sector at once, appearing in orbit over capital worlds, trade hubs, and military strongholds. Not a single shot fired. Not a single word spoken. Just presence. Cold. Absolute. Surgical. Command ordered simultaneous strikes across the galaxy. Our ships jumped to engage, thousands of vessels moving in perfect formation. It didn't matter. The humans didn't maneuver to meet us. They simply marked targets. In less than a second, every human ship lit with a lattice of blue geometric patterns. War code, not decoration. Then came the first and final broadcast. No face, no voice. Just a single line of text. Transmitted into every encrypted system, every comms array, every neural HUD. This is reclamation. Not conquest, not invasion. Reclamation. Their ships fired. But fired isn't even the right word. There were no beams, no missiles, just silent flashes of impossible light. Entire battle groups vanished, not destroyed, but deleted, as if rewritten out of existence. Our sensors registered no explosion, no radiation. Space just removed them. I watched thousands of allies disappear with the calm precision of a surgeon removing dust from glass. We tried to retreat. They let us. We tried to regroup. They ignored us, because we weren't the target. Planets were. One by one, human fleets turned their focus toward the worlds below. But they did not bomb cities. They did not scorch continents. They disabled infrastructure, orbital rings, shipyards, defense grids, quantum relays, cutting civilization apart without spilling civilian blood. In hours, the galaxy went dark. No comms, no trade routes, no reinforcements. Every great empire, every proud navy, every ancient house, reduced to isolation. A galactic civilization silenced and contained with mathematical precision. Still, humanity spoke no threats, issued no demands. They didn't want surrender, they wanted inevitability. The council gathered in emergency session, shaking, broken, panic barely concealed beneath ceremonial robes. Debates turned to shouting. Shouting turned to fear. Fear turned to acceptance. We had lost a war that never actually began. I received one final data burst from an anonymous human source. Just coordinates. A single location in the core systems. No instructions. No threats. No explanation. Meeting point, not for negotiation. For acknowledgement. They weren't asking for permission to take back the galaxy. They were telling us where to stand when they resume. Ownership of it. Humanity didn't conquer us. They outgrew us as I stared through the viewport at their silent armadas, hanging like a perfectly balanced guillotine over 1,000 worlds. I understood the truth the legends always tried to teach. Humans don't win wars. They end possibilities. And when they return, there is no after. There is only the world they decide will exist.